You are standing in a room full of people and nobody is talking. Something in your chest tightens before a single second has passed. You reach for your phone before you even realize your hand moved. Not because there is anything to check, because the silence needed to be filled with something. That reflex is what we are going to look at today. Not the silence itself, but why your body treats it like a threat. You are at dinner with someone you know well. A pause falls between two sentences. It lasts maybe 4 seconds, and already you are calculating, did I say something wrong? Are they upset? Should I talk? Why aren't they talking? 4 seconds. That is all it took to feel the pressure build. Most people assume silence is uncomfortable because it is boring. But boredom does not create that chest tightening. Boredom does not make you apologize for a pause that required no apology. Something else is running underneath. Silence removes the thing most social interaction quietly depends on: momentum. When words are moving, the conversation is managing itself. You know what role you are playing. You know what comes next. Silence stops that. And when it stops, you are suddenly exposed. Not because anything bad happened, but because the script ran out. And without a script, you do not know who you are supposed to be in this moment. That sounds dramatic, but watch what you actually do. You laugh at nothing. You summarize what was just said. You ask a question you do not care about the answer to. You say so anyway and redirect to anything. These are not communication choices. These are exits. The silence asked something of you, and you left before answering. Here is the part people usually miss. Silence does not just create discomfort. It creates exposure. When there is nothing to say and no performance to maintain, whatever is actually present in you becomes visible. Not to anyone else necessarily, but to you. And for a lot of people, that is the part that cannot be tolerated. You spend most of your day in motion, talking, responding, producing, reacting. That motion has a side effect. It keeps you from sitting with yourself. Silence removes the motion, and what is left underneath can feel unfamiliar. Sometimes it is just tiredness you have been ignoring for weeks. Sometimes it is a low-grade anxiety that was always there, just covered. Sometimes it is nothing dramatic at all. Just a stillness that feels wrong, because stillness stopped feeling normal a long time ago. So the discomfort is not really about silence. It is about what silence stops hiding. There is a version of this that shows up in relationships specifically. You are with someone, and the conversation naturally slows down. And instead of letting it rest, you feel a quiet panic begin. Because somewhere you learned that silence between people means something is wrong. That if someone is not talking, they are pulling away. That a pause is a sign, not just a pause. So you fill it, every time, without thinking about it. You ask how their day was when you already know. You bring up something random just to hear a response come back. You mistake noise for connection and silence for distance. But those two things are not the same. Some of the most connected moments between people contain almost no words. The problem is you cannot access that if silence feels like a warning signal. So you never let it arrive. And you never find out what it actually was. There is also a version of this that is entirely internal. You are alone. No one is watching. No one is waiting. And you still cannot sit in a quiet room without reaching for something. Music, a podcast, a video playing in the background at low volume. Not because you are enjoying it, because the alternative feels unbearable. The alternative is just you in a room with your own thoughts arriving. And for a lot of people, that is genuinely frightening. Not in a dramatic way, in a slow, resistant, avoidant way. The thoughts that show up in silence are not always dark. Sometimes they are just honest, and honest can be harder than dark. You might start thinking about something you have been postponing, a decision you are avoiding, a feeling you have not named yet, a version of your life that does not match the one you are living. Silence does not create those thoughts. It just stops drowning them out. And somewhere along the way, a lot of people started confusing the two. They think silence is making them feel bad, when really, silence is just finally letting them hear something that was already there. This is where the real discomfort lives. Not in the quiet itself, but in the recognition that you have been running from something. And the silence is just the first moment you stopped running long enough to notice. Now, think about how this pattern plays out socially on a larger scale. Silence in a group setting triggers something close to social alarm. Someone will always break it, usually within seconds, sometimes within one. And whoever breaks it often feels relieved, even slightly heroic, like they rescued the room from something dangerous. But what was actually dangerous about it? Nothing happened. No one was harmed. The room was just quiet. What actually happened is that everyone's nervous system registered the absence of noise as a potential social threat, a signal that something had gone wrong. That response is partly trained, partly cultural, partly just habit. In a lot of environments, classrooms, offices, families, silence was treated as a problem, a sign of disagreement, incompetence, awkwardness, or disconnection. So you learned early that silence needed to be fixed, and you have been fixing it ever since without questioning whether it was actually broken. The cost of this is quieter than you might expect. It is not one dramatic consequence, it is a slow accumulation. You never develop comfort with your own company. You never learn what your thoughts actually are when nothing is competing with them. You make decisions faster than you should because stillness feels like stalling. You fill conversations before the other person finishes forming what they wanted to say. You mistake busyness for productivity and noise for engagement. And over time, you become slightly dependent on external input, just to feel okay. Not in a way anyone would diagnose, just in a way that quietly runs your days. You need the podcast on during the commute. You need something playing while you cook, clean, fall asleep. Not for enjoyment, for coverage. So the silence does not get in. And the longer that goes on, the less tolerance you have for it. The less tolerance you have, the more you avoid it. The more you avoid it, the more unfamiliar it becomes, until silence stops feeling like rest and starts feeling like punishment. That loop is worth noticing, not judging, just noticing. Because the exit from it is not dramatic. It does not require a retreat or a practice. It starts with something much smaller. Letting a pause exist without immediately filling it. Sitting in your car for 2 minutes after you park before reaching for your phone. Letting a conversation breathe instead of managing it. Not because silence is enlightened or therapeutic or the answer to anything, but because your nervous system needs to learn again that quiet is not a threat, that nothing bad happens in the gap, that the thought that arrives when you stop running is survivable. Usually it is not even that heavy. Usually it is just true. And truth, even when it is uncomfortable, tends to be more useful than the noise you are using to keep it at a distance. One thing worth saying clearly before this ends: if the discomfort around silence connects to something deeper, persistent anxiety, avoidance that is affecting your relationships or your functioning, this kind of reflection is a starting point, not a solution. Talking to someone trained in this is a different and more useful thing. This video is for recognition, not treatment. But for a lot of people, the pattern here is simpler than it feels. You became uncomfortable with silence because silence stopped feeling safe. And it stopped feeling safe because it kept showing you things you were not ready to look at. The shift is not learning to love silence. It is just learning to stay in the room long enough to find out that what was there was never as dangerous as you thought.